Maybe your work as a corporate instructional designer looks like this. Someone in your organization comes to you and tells you that they need a course. You say sure. After all, making courses is your job. They ship over some resources, such as a PowerPoint slide deck that they use for the normal 2-hour training session that they do. Perhaps you have a meeting to work out exactly what the content should include. You take that content and turn it into a variety of different kinds of media. This might be videos, animations, e-learning files, interactives, and quizzes. You make sure not to miss any of the precious content that you've been asked to include. After spending considerable time creating the training, you distribute it to the learners, and they grumble. Over the following weeks and days, you hear plenty of excuses why they haven't done it, such as not having enough time, not having been told about it, or not being able to log in to their account in the learning portal. When they do it, they click through it as fast as possible, skip over any blocks of text, and check social media whilst the videos are playing. They don't learn much, and experience it mainly as a waste of time. The type of training I've described is what Cathy Moore calls an information dump. It's time-consuming to make, time-consuming to complete, unengaging, and has a very limited impact. The senior leadership have experienced this kind of training often enough to not take e-learning seriously as a tool that can contribute to business outcomes. Moore's solution to this situation is an approach to corporate instructional design called action mapping. It's different to many trends and ideas in instructional design in that it doesn't specify what product, such as video, in-person training or e-learning, you're going to use to solve the performance problem. In fact, it requires you to avoid choosing a product early on in the planning process, as this can interfere with the process of identifying the best solution to a problem. You can't even assume that training will be the solution to the problem that your stakeholder is trying to solve. Action mapping is an approach in which you spend a good amount of time inspecting the problem with your stakeholders and define the exact way you want employee behavior to change before you decide whether training is an appropriate solution, and if so, what kind of training could work. So, how does it work? When a stakeholder in your organization comes to you asking for a course, you initially avoid either agreeing to make a course or refusing. Instead, you ask the stakeholder to work with you to establish a specific and measurable goal, preferably based around metrics that the organization is already monitoring. This shifts the focus of your work from simply providing training to solving real problems in the organization. For example, when a stakeholder comes to you to ask you to make a course on customer service, you redirect the conversation to what their goal is. You might agree together a goal to reduce customer complaints by 20% by the end of the year. Next, you find out exactly what the employees would have to do to achieve this goal. It's important that you're still not designing a course here. You're asking what the employees have to do, not what they have to know or learn. In our example, perhaps the stakeholder or other colleague helps you to establish that you can reach the goal if the customer service reps use active listening when communicating with customers, use probing questions to understand consumer problems, and share information between them effectively. So, now you might be thinking, surely you get to work making a course. No, there's still a step to go through before you can be sure whether a course is the right solution. That step is to ask why the employees aren't already taking those actions, and what changes could help them to take those actions. For example, it might turn out that the lack of effective information sharing is to do with badly designed customer management software, and therefore training may not be the solution. Perhaps your employees know how to use active listening techniques, but are just forgetting, in which case training again is unlikely to be the solution. Some kind of visual prompt or reminder might help though. On the other hand, perhaps they do need some training on how to use probing questions. But when you've decided that some training is appropriate, you still don't start compiling information into your normal information dump. What probing questions are, why they're important, step-by-step instructions on how to do them. Instead, you design practice activities that simulate their work situation, allow them to make realistic choices, and then give them feedback that shows them the consequences of their actions. This could be done as scenario-based e-learning, but could be in a different medium, such as an in-person role-play. Only after you've done all this can you decide what is the minimum information that learners need to know to perform the task effectively. You may choose to present this information to learners before or even after the practice activities, or place it within the practice activity so that they can look it up if they want. The key thing here is to only give the information that's absolutely necessary for employees to successfully perform the desired behaviour. So, why does action mapping work? For me, there are 3 big advantages to the model. First, action mapping includes a rigorous process for identifying if, when, and how training is needed. That crucial question of why the employees aren't doing the actions that they need to do helps you to identify when the problem is a lack of training and when it's something completely different, such as something in their environment or a lack of motivation. Secondly, by prioritizing practice activities over information-based training, action mapping often slashes the amount of development time. Instead of you slaving away for hours, making something that learners click through as fast and thoughtlessly as possible, they're engaged and active throughout the training and always focused on improving their performance. Finally, by setting measurable and meaningful goals, it demands that others in the organisation take training seriously and not see it as a dull routine to go through for a day or 2 a year, but something that can and should impact the bottom line of the business. The full model of action mapping is more complex and in-depth and can be found in Cathy Moore's book, Map It, The Hands-On Guide to Strategic Training Design. If it sounds interesting to you, I would thoroughly recommend reading it. I hope you found my summary of the model helpful. I'll be creating more videos about topics in instructional design, so let me know if there are any topics that you would like me to cover. Until next time.